I discovered my husband's secrets the night someone tried to murder my daughter for his money. Please like and subscribe this video and listen to my story till the end and let me know which city you are listening from. That way I can see how far my story has traveled. The phone rang at 2:47 a.m. I know the exact time because I was already awake, sitting at my kitchen table with cold tea, and the gas bill I'd been pretending to read for an hour. Sleep had become a stranger to me over the past year, ever since Arthur died. Not the peaceful kind of death people whisper about at funerals. The messy kind. The kind with tubes and beeping machines and a final rattle that sounded like drowning. The phone's shrill cry cut through the silence of my small house. My hand shook as I reached for it. Nothing good comes from calls at this hour. Mrs. Brennan? A young woman's voice, professional but strained. Yes. This is Officer Melissa Chun with the Portland Police. I'm calling about your daughter, Sarah. My stomach dropped. Sarah. My only child. 42 years old and still finding new ways to worry me. What happened? Is she hurt? She's been in an accident. Single car collision on Route 26. She's alive, but Mrs. Brennan, she's asking for you. And there are some questions we need to ask. Can you come to Maine Medical Center? I was already standing, reaching for my coat with fingers that felt like they belonged to someone else. I'm coming now. The drive took 18 minutes. I counted every one. Sarah looked small in the hospital bed, her face pale against the white pillow, a bandage wrapped around her head, and her left arm was in a cast. But her eyes were wild with something that wasn't just pain. Mom! Her voice cracked. Mom, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I took her good hand, felt how cold it was. What happened, honey? She glanced at the police officer standing near the door, then back at me. Her grip tightened until it hurt. It wasn't an accident. The words hung in the air like smoke. Officer Chun stepped forward. Mrs. Brennan, your daughter's car was forced off the road. We found paint transfer on her vehicle consistent with a deliberate collision. And there's something else. She paused, choosing her words carefully. We found a large amount of cash in her trunk. $50,000 in wrapped bills. I felt the floor tilt beneath me. Sarah. My voice came out as a whisper. My daughter's eyes filled with tears. It's Dad's money, Mom. And now they know I have it. We couldn't talk until the next morning, after they'd moved Sarah to a regular room and the police had taken their initial statement. I'd spent the night in a chair beside her bed, watching her sleep fitfully, her good hand twitching like she was trying to grasp something just out of reach. When she woke, sunlight was streaming through the blinds, cutting the room into strips of light and shadow. Tell me, I said simply. Sarah struggled to sit up. I helped her, adjusting the pillows behind her back. She looked older than she had yesterday. Or maybe I was just seeing her clearly for the first time in years. Dad had another account, she began. One you didn't know about. I found out about it 3 years ago, right before he got sick. I waited. I'd learned long ago that silence could extract confessions better than questions. He made me promise not to tell you. Said it was insurance. For emergencies. He put my name on it. She swallowed hard. There was $200,000 in it, Mom. $200,000. Arthur and I had scrimped and saved our whole marriage. We'd worked ourselves to exhaustion running the hardware store. And he'd hidden a fortune from me. Where did it come from? I don't know. Not exactly. But after he died, I started getting visitors. Men asking about money Dad owed. Money he'd borrowed from someone named Kovac. They said he was supposed to pay it back with interest, and now that debt belonged to me. My hands gripped the armrests of my chair. What did you do? I gave them $50,000. Everything I had left in the account after I'd already used some. Her voice dropped to barely audible. I thought that would be the end of it. But they want the rest. They say Dad took $200 but only paid back $70 over the years. With interest, they claim he owed over $300,000 when he died. That's insane. They don't care. And Mom. She looked at me with fear I hadn't seen since she was a little girl afraid of the dark. They know where you live. They know everything about us. The man who came to see me last week, he described your kitchen. Said you drink tea from a blue mug with a chip in the handle. Said you sit at the table every night around 2 a.m. My blood ran cold. The blue mug was sitting on my kitchen counter right now. So I took the $50,000 from my savings, Sarah continued. I was going to give it to them, try to negotiate. But someone ran me off the road before I could make the meeting. Someone from Kovac? I don't know. Maybe. Or maybe someone else who knows about the money. She closed her eyes. Mom, I'm scared. And I don't understand any of this. Dad was a hardware store owner. Where did he get that kind of money? And why did he owe it to criminals? I sat back in my chair, feeling every one of my 63 years settle into my bones like lead weights. I don't know, I said. But I'm going to find out. They kept Sarah for 3 more days. I stayed in her apartment, a small one-bedroom in the Old Port district that smelled like the lavender sachets she'd always loved. I went through her papers, her laptop, anything that might tell me what Arthur had been involved in. I found statements from the secret account. Regular deposits going back 20 years. Small amounts at first, 500 here, 1,000 there. Then larger sums. The deposits stopped 3 years ago, right around the time Arthur's heart started giving him trouble. I also found a business card tucked into one of Arthur's old books that Sarah had kept. J. Kovac, private lending. No address, just a phone number with the Portland area code. I stared at that card for a long time. Then I picked up my phone and dialed. A man answered on the second ring. Yes. My name is Helen Brennan. My husband was Arthur Brennan. I understand he owed you money. A pause. Then, Mrs. Brennan, I was hoping we'd have a chance to speak. Your husband was a good customer for many years. He's dead. Yes, I know. I'm sorry for your loss. But debts don't die with the debtor, I'm afraid. I want to meet with you. Discuss terms. Another pause, longer this time. That's very reasonable of you. Tomorrow 2 p.m. There's a coffee shop on Congress Street called The Daily Grind. Come alone. He hung up before I could respond. I hadn't been on a date in 45 years, but this felt something like it. The same nervous energy, the same careful attention to appearance. I wore my good navy blazer, the one I'd bought for Arthur's funeral. I wanted to look respectable but not wealthy, capable but not threatening. The Daily Grind was busy with the lunch crowd when I arrived 15 minutes early. I ordered tea, they didn't have my preferred brand, and found a corner table where I could watch the door. Kovac arrived exactly at 2. I recognized him immediately, though I'd never seen him before. He had that quality of controlled danger some men carry, the kind that makes you aware of your own vulnerability. Tall, maybe 55, with gray at his temples and an expensive watch that caught the light. He sat down across from me without asking. Mrs. Brennan, thank you for coming. I don't have your money. I know. Your daughter made that clear. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. The question is, how do we resolve this situation? You could forgive the debt. I could. But that would set a poor precedent. People need to understand that obligations are met, one way or another. I took a sip of my tea, buying time. My husband never told me about this debt, about any of this. Arthur was a private man. You knew him well? Well enough. He came to me 22 years ago needing capital. Banks wouldn't touch him, he'd overextended on the store, made some poor investments. He was desperate. Kovac leaned back in his chair. I helped him. In exchange, he helped me. How? Your husband's hardware store was perfectly positioned, close to the waterfront, lots of foot traffic, space in the back for storage. He allowed me to use it for certain shipments. Nothing dangerous. Nothing that would put civilians at risk. Just merchandise that needed to move through Portland without excessive paperwork. My teacup rattled as I set it down. Arthur was smuggling for you. Arthur was facilitating commerce. There's a difference. And you paid him for this. Generously. For 20 years we had a mutually beneficial arrangement. But 3 years ago Arthur got cold feet. His heart was failing, he was thinking about his legacy. He wanted out. Kovac's expression hardened. He thought he could just walk away from the money he owed me. The principal, the interest, the fees for early termination of our agreement. He was wrong. How much? $230,000, accounting for what your daughter already paid. I'd expected the number, but hearing it still felt like a punch. I don't have it. I live on Social Security and Arthur's pension. The house is mortgaged. There's nothing left. There's always something left, Mrs. Brennan. Assets to sell. Insurance policies. Family who could help. Are you threatening me? I'm stating facts. He pulled out a business card. A different one with an address this time. You have 2 weeks to come up with a payment plan. After that, I'll need to take more direct measures to recoup my losses. He stood to leave, then paused. One more thing. Your daughter's accident? That wasn't us. Someone else is interested in your family's business. I'd be careful if I were you. I sat in the coffee shop for another hour after he left, watching people come and go, living their uncomplicated lives. I thought about Arthur. About 42 years of marriage to a man I apparently never knew that we'd met when I was 21, working as a secretary at a manufacturing plant. He was 25, ambitious, full of dreams about owning his own business. We got married 6 months later. Sarah came a year after that. I thought we were happy. We'd had our struggles. Money was always tight, especially in the early years. But we'd faced them together. Or so I believed. How many of our financial recoveries had been funded by Kovac's criminal enterprise? How many times had I thanked Arthur for his hard work, never knowing where the money really came from? My phone buzzed. A text from Sarah. How did it go? I didn't answer. Instead, I pulled out the second business card Kovac had given me and stared at the address. Then I did something I hadn't done in decades. I decided to stop being obedient. The address led to a warehouse in the industrial district, near the harbor where cargo ships unloaded their containers. I drove past it twice before parking 3 blocks away. It was nearly 5 p.m., and workers were heading home, their day shifts ending. I walked slowly, trying to look like someone's grandmother out for exercise. The warehouse was nondescript, gray metal siding, a few high windows, a loading dock with a closed door. A sign read, Portland Distribution Services. I was about to leave when I saw someone I recognized. Thomas Reed, Arthur's best friend, his fishing buddy, the man who delivered the eulogy at Arthur's funeral, who'd cried real tears and told stories about their 40-year friendship. He was coming out of the warehouse with another man, both carrying clipboards. They were laughing about something. Thomas looked healthy, prosperous. He'd retired from his plumbing business 5 years ago and moved to Cape Elizabeth, one of the wealthy suburbs overlooking the ocean. I ducked behind a parked truck and watched them. They talked for another minute, then shook hands. Thomas got into a black Mercedes and drove away. My mind raced. Thomas had been there through everything. Every Christmas, every birthday party, every crisis. He'd been the one who recommended the specialist when Arthur's heart started failing. He'd been at the hospital the night Arthur died. Had he known? Had he been part of it? I needed answers, but approaching Thomas directly seemed dangerous. If he was involved with Kovac, he might warn him that I was investigating. And if Kovac was telling the truth about someone else being after us, I needed to understand the full picture before making any moves. I walked back to my car, my mind churning. Who else had known Arthur's secrets? Who else might have information? The answer came to me as I started the engine. Diane. Diane Brennan was Arthur's younger sister, 60 years old and sharp as a knife. She lived in South Portland in a tidy ranch house she'd bought after her divorce 15 years ago. We'd never been close. She'd always thought Arthur married beneath himself, but she'd been devoted to her brother. I called her from the car. Helen? Is everything all right? I need to talk to you. About Arthur. A pause. What about him? Not over the phone. Can I come by? I suppose. I'm home all evening. Diane answered the door in yoga pants and a sweatshirt, her gray hair pulled back in a ponytail. She looked surprised to see me. We hadn't spoken since Arthur's funeral 8 months ago. Come in. I'll make coffee. Her house was immaculate, everything in its place. We sat at her kitchen table and I got straight to the point. Did you know Arthur was involved with criminals? She set down her coffee mug carefully. Excuse me. I told her everything. The hidden account, Kovac, the debt, Sarah's accident. I watched her face carefully as I spoke, looking for signs of surprise or guilt. What I saw was anger. That stupid man, she whispered. I warned him. 20 years ago, I told him this would end badly. You knew. Not everything. But I knew he was involved in something. He came to me once, asked me to hold some money for him. Said it was safer if it wasn't in his name. I refused. She looked at me with something like pity. You really didn't know? No. Arthur always was good at keeping secrets. Even when we were kids. She stood and walked to a drawer, pulled out a folder. After he died, I found this in his things. He'd asked me to store some boxes for him years ago, said they were old business records. I finally went through them last month. She handed me the folder. Inside were bank statements, receipts, and a ledger written in Arthur's neat handwriting. Dates, amounts, names I didn't recognize. What is this? A record of every payment he made to Kovac. Every shipment he facilitated. He was meticulous about documenting everything. Diane sat back down. I think he knew it might be insurance someday. Proof that he wasn't acting alone. I flipped through the pages. 20 years of transactions. Hundreds of thousands of dollars flowing in and out. And at the bottom of the last page, a list of names with dollar amounts next to them. Thomas Reed, $40,000 per year. Michael Chun, $25,000 per year. Robert Castellano, $35,000 per year. He wasn't alone, I said softly. He had partners. Partners or accomplices. I'm not sure there's much difference. Diane's voice was bitter. My brother was a criminal, Helen. A successful one, but a criminal nonetheless. I stared at the names. Michael Chun ran a shipping company. Robert Castellano owned a restaurant on the waterfront. And Thomas Reed. Thomas had always been there. Why didn't you tell me about this before? Because what good would it do? Arthur was dead. You were grieving. And I thought the debt died with him. She shook her head. I should have known better. People like Kovac don't forget. Someone ran Sarah off the road. Kovac says it wasn't him. Diane's expression changed. Then it was one of the others. They're probably worried that Sarah knows too much, that Arthur left evidence behind that could implicate them. Did he? You're holding it. I drove home with the folder on my passenger seat, feeling its weight like a living thing. Evidence. Arthur had kept evidence of everything, and now that evidence could either save us or destroy us. My house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. I sat in the car for a moment, studying the shadows. Kovac's people had been watching me. Who else might be out there? I gathered my purse and the folder, locked the car, and walked quickly to my front door. My keys jingled as I fumbled for the lock. The door was already unlocked. I froze. I always locked my door. Always. I should have run. Should have gotten back in my car and called the police. But something stubborn in me refused to be chased from my own home. I pushed the door open slowly. The living room looked normal. Everything in its place. No signs of disturbance. I reached for the light switch. Don't. The voice came from my kitchen. A man's voice, familiar but wrong somehow. Strained. I flipped the switch anyway. Thomas Reed sat at my kitchen table, in the same spot where I'd been sitting when Officer Chan called about Sarah. He had a gun resting on the table in front of him, his hand near it but not on it. Hello, Helen. Thomas. I kept my voice steady. You let yourself in. Arthur gave me a key years ago. For emergencies. He looked tired, older than his 65 years. I think this qualifies. Are you here to kill me? What? No. Jesus, Helen. He rubbed his face with his free hand. I'm here to warn you. To help you understand what you're dealing with. I know what Arthur was doing. I know you were part of it. Then you know how dangerous this is. Kovac is the least of your worries. He gestured to the chair across from him. Sit down. Please. I sat, keeping the table between us. The folder was still clutched against my chest. What's that? Thomas asked. Arthur's records. Everything he did for Kovac. Including payments to you and the others. Thomas closed his eyes briefly. Smart bastard. He always was. I told him keeping records was stupid, but he insisted. Said it was mutually assured destruction. If he went down, we all went down. Who ran Sarah off the road? Probably Castellano. He's panicking. His restaurant is struggling, and he can't afford any scrutiny right now. He thinks Sarah might have more than just money. That she might have Arthur's records. She doesn't. Diane does. Did. And now you do. Thomas looked at me seriously. Helen, you need to give that to Kovac. Not the police. Kovac. Why would I do that? Because he's the only one who can protect you. You go to the police with this, you destroy all of us. Me Chun Castellano. We'll go to prison. But you know what else will happen? Our families will be destroyed. My daughter just had a baby, Helen. Your granddaughter's age. And Kovac. He won't go to prison. He's too smart, too connected. He'll walk away clean. And then he'll come after you and Sarah for the betrayal. So I should just let him extort us? I'm saying there's another way. Thomas leaned forward. Give him the records. In exchange, he wipes out Arthur's debt. Everyone wins. We all go back to our lives. Except you all broke the law. You all profited from it. We did. And we've lived with that guilt every day. His voice hardened. But don't you dare judge us, Helen. Arthur did this for you. For Sarah. Every dollar went into your house, your food, your daughter's education. You benefited from this as much as any of us. The truth of that hit me like cold water. He was right. The college tuition we'd somehow scraped together. The new roof 10 years ago. The renovations to the store that had kept it profitable. All of it paid for with dirty money. I'd been complicit all along, just too blind to see it. Get out, I said quietly. Helen, get out of my house, Thomas. Before I call the police right now. He stood slowly, picked up the gun. I noticed he hadn't pointed it at me once, and tucked it into his jacket. I'm trying to save you. Don't let pride destroy what's left of your life. After he left, I sat in the dark for a long time, listening to my house settle around me. The folder lay open on the table, Arthur's handwriting staring up at me like an accusation. I didn't sleep that night. Instead, I read every page of Arthur's records, memorizing names and dates and amounts, building a picture of the enterprise he'd been part of. It was sophisticated. Kovac brought in shipments through legitimate cargo companies. Chin's company handled the logistics. The goods were stored temporarily at Arthur's hardware store, then distributed to various locations. Castellano's restaurant served as a meeting place and secondary distribution point. Thomas provided security expertise and helped with transportation. They'd moved everything from untaxed cigarettes to stolen electronics to prescription drugs. Nothing violent, nothing that would draw serious federal attention. Just white-collar crime with blue-collar workers, flying under the radar. And Arthur had documented all of it, creating a paper trail that could destroy everyone involved. Why? What had he been planning? I found the answer in a letter tucked into the back of the folder. Written in Arthur's handwriting, dated 2 months before his death. To whom it may concern. If you're reading this, I'm probably dead. I've kept these records as insurance, but also as confession. What we did was wrong. I knew it then and I know it now. I thought I could stop, could walk away, but Kovac made it clear that debts are forever. I'm leaving these records to Diane with instructions to give them to Helen if anything happens to me or Sarah. Helen, if you're reading this, I'm sorry. Sorry for lying, for hiding, for being weak when I should have been strong. Use these records however you see fit. Go to the police, use them to negotiate with Kovac, or burn them and walk away. Just protect our daughter. She's the only thing I did right. I love you. I'm sorry I never found the courage to tell you the truth while I could still look you in the eye. Arthur. I read the letter 3 times, tears blurring the words. This was his confession, his attempt at redemption. He'd given me the power to choose what happened next. But what should I choose? Sarah was released from the hospital the next day. I picked her up and drove her back to my house. Her apartment didn't feel safe anymore. We sat in my living room and I showed her everything. The records, the letter, Thomas's visit. She read it all in silence, her face growing paler with each page. Dad did this for us, she finally said. He did this for himself first. We just benefited from it. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. I looked at my daughter, my smart, capable daughter who'd been dragged into this mess through no fault of her own. What do you think I should do? She considered for a long time. I think we need to talk to Kovac. But not to give him the records. To negotiate. He said. I know what he said. But he also needs us. If these records go public, his entire Portland operation is exposed. He loses everything he's built here. Sarah's eyes were sharp now, calculating. We have leverage. We just need to use it right. That's dangerous. Everything about this is dangerous, Mom. But I'm tired of being scared. Aren't you? I was. God help me, I was so tired of being scared. I called Kovac from my home phone. He answered on the first ring like he'd been waiting. Mrs. Brennan, I hope you're calling with good news. I have Arthur's records. Everything he did for you. Everyone involved. 20 years of documentation. A long pause. I see. I want to meet. To discuss terms. Terms. Yes. My terms, not yours. Tomorrow, same place, same time. Mrs. Brennan, I don't think you understand. I understand perfectly. Tomorrow at 2. I hung up before he could respond. Sarah looked at me with something like admiration. That was either very brave or very stupid. Probably both. We spent the evening preparing. Sarah made copies of the most damaging documents and stored them in 3 different locations. A safety deposit box at a bank with her lawyer, and with a friend in Boston who didn't know what they contained, just instructions to send them to the FBI if anything happened to us. The originals we brought with us to the coffee shop the next day. Kovac was already there when we arrived, sitting at the same corner table. He wasn't alone this time. 2 men stood near the entrance, watching everyone who came in. Security. You brought your daughter. He didn't sound pleased. She's as much a part of this as I am. I sat down, Sarah beside me. Let's talk business. I don't negotiate with people who are in debt to me, Mrs. Brennan. Then it's a good thing I'm no longer in debt to you. I placed the folder on the table. Everything Arthur owed you, he's already paid. These records prove it. $200,000 in principal, paid back through services rendered over 20 years. By any reasonable accounting, his debt was satisfied 10 years ago. What you're doing now is extortion. Kovac's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. That's an interesting interpretation. It's the truth. And if you try to collect another dollar from me or my daughter, these records go to the FBI. Along with testimony about your threats, Sarah's accident, and your continuing criminal enterprise. Mutually assured destruction. He almost smiled. Arthur taught you well. Arthur was weak. He borrowed money he couldn't repay, got in over his head, and didn't have the courage to get out. I'm not weak. I leaned forward. Here's what's going to happen. You're going to forgive any remaining debt. You're going to leave me and Sarah alone. And you're going to make sure Castellano and anyone else with ideas about hurting my daughter understands that we're protected. And in exchange, these records stay buried. You continue your business without the inconvenience of federal investigation. Everyone moves on. Kovac studied me for a long moment. You're not what I expected. People rarely are. He picked up the folder, flipped through a few pages. And if I refuse, then we both lose. You go to prison, I probably get killed. But at least you'll be there to know that I took you down with me. The silence stretched out. Sarah's hand found mine under the table, cold and trembling. But her face was calm. Finally, Kovac closed the folder and pushed it back to me. Keep them. Consider it insurance that I'll honor our agreement. If these ever surface, I'll know where they came from. They won't. Unless you give me reason. Fair enough. He stood. You're more like Arthur than you think, Mrs. Brennan. He would have been proud. He would have been ashamed. I stood as well. But he would have been glad I survived. We walked out of the coffee shop into afternoon sunshine. Sarah's grip on my hand loosened. Is it over? She asked. Maybe. For now. We drove back to my house in silence. When we pulled into the driveway, Thomas Reed was sitting on my front steps. I almost reversed back out, but he raised his hands in surrender. Just here to talk. No gun this time. Sarah stayed in the car while I approached him. I heard about your meeting with Kovac, Thomas said. Word travels fast. Then you know we're done with all of this. I do. And I wanted to say. He struggled for words. I'm sorry. For everything. For getting Arthur involved, for not stopping him, for threatening you the other night. You did what you thought was necessary to protect yourself. That doesn't make it right. He looked old and tired. We were friends once. You and me and Arthur and my late wife. Remember those summers we'd rent the cabin in Sebago? I did remember. Laughter and card games and too much wine. Simpler times, or so I'd thought. That was before you all decided to become criminals. It was. And I wish. He shook his head. I wish a lot of things. But mostly I wish Arthur had trusted you. You're stronger than he ever gave you credit for. He knew. At the end, I think he knew. Thomas started to walk to his car, then turned back. What will you do now? Live. Take care of my daughter. Try to get through each day. That's all any of us can do, I suppose. He got in his car and drove away. Sarah joined me on the steps. What did he want? To apologize. To remind me of who we used to be. Can you forgive him? I don't know. Maybe someday. I put my arm around her shoulders. Come on. Let's go inside. I'll make us some tea. That night, I sat at my kitchen table as usual. My blue mug with the chipped handle steamed beside me. The folder lay in front of me, Arthur's confession and my insurance policy all in one. I thought about burning it, about taking it to the police, about 100 different things I could do with this power Arthur had left me. In the end, I did nothing. I tucked the folder into a locked box in my bedroom closet and tried to go back to sleep. But sleep wouldn't come. It hadn't really come since Arthur died, since the night Officer Chun called about Sarah. Maybe it never would again. 3 weeks later, I was at the grocery store when I saw Castellano. He was in the produce section, examining tomatoes like they held the secrets of the universe. He looked up and saw me. Our eyes met. He flinched. Then he put down the tomato and walked away quickly, abandoning his cart in the middle of the aisle. I finished my shopping slowly, methodically, choosing each item with care, taking my time. When I checked out, the cashier commented on my smile. You seem happy today, Mrs. Brennan. I suppose I am. It was true. For the first time in months, I felt something other than grief and fear. I felt powerful, dangerous, alive. Sarah came for dinner that Sunday. We ate roast chicken and talked about her job, her friends, her plans to adopt a cat. Normal things. Safe things. But after dinner, while we were washing dishes, she asked the question I'd been expecting. Do you think about turning them in? Kovac and the others. I dried a plate carefully, considering my answer. Sometimes. Why don't you? Because justice isn't clean. If I turn them in, I have to tell the truth about Arthur. About our life. About where the money came from that paid for your college, for our home, for everything. I set down the plate. And because part of me understands why they did it. Mom. Not the crime. But the desperation. The feeling that the world won't give you what you need to survive, so you take it. Your father wasn't evil. He was weak and scared and trying to provide for us the only way he knew how. That doesn't excuse it. No. But it explains it. I looked at her seriously. The world isn't divided into good people and bad people, Sarah. It's divided into people who've been desperate and people who haven't been yet. She thought about that while we finished the dishes. Before she left, she hugged me tight. I'm glad you're my mom, she whispered. I'm glad you're my daughter. I went back to my ordinary life. Paid my bills, tended my garden, went to the library on Thursdays. But I wasn't the same person I'd been before that phone call at 2:47 a.m. I'd learned things about myself I couldn't unlearn. About my capacity for deception, for threat, for survival at any cost. I'd looked at dangerous men and made them flinch. I'd held power and chosen not to use it, which was its own kind of power. Arthur had thought he was protecting me by keeping secrets. What he'd actually done was make me complicit in his crimes while denying me any agency in our life together. He'd stolen my choices in the name of love. But he'd also given me one final gift. the truth, and with it, the power to decide what came next. 6 months after Sarah's accident, I received a letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting from the business card. Mrs. Brennan, I wanted you to know that Robert Castellano has relocated to Florida. He won't be returning to Portland. Consider it a gesture of good faith. You won a game most people don't survive. I respect that. But remember, the game is never truly over. Just paused. Stay vigilant. JK. I burned the letter in my kitchen sink and washed the ashes down the drain. Sometimes at night when I can't sleep, I take out the folder. I read Arthur's handwriting, traced the lines of his confession. I think about the man I married, the man I thought I knew, the stranger he turned out to be. And I think about the woman I've become. Before all this, I was Arthur's widow, Sarah's mother, a retired secretary living alone in a small house, invisible to the world. Now I'm something else. I'm a woman who faced criminals and won. A woman who holds secrets that could destroy lives and chooses not to use them. For now. A woman who understands that survival sometimes requires compromise, that morality is more complicated than I believed for 63 years. I'm dangerous in a way I never knew I could be. And I'm completely alone with that knowledge. Sarah doesn't ask about the folder anymore. We've developed an unspoken agreement. She lives her life, I live mine, and we don't talk about the darkness that connects us. It's better that way. Easier. But I see the way she looks at me sometimes, like she's trying to reconcile the mother she knew with the woman who sat across from Kovac and didn't blink. Like she's both proud and frightened of what I've become. I understand. I feel the same way about myself. One evening in late autumn, nearly a year after that phone call, I was walking along the eastern promenade, watching the sunset over Casco Bay. The water was steel gray, choppy with wind. Leaves skittered across the path like small animals fleeing winter. A man fell into step beside me. Not Kovac. Not Thomas. Someone new. Mrs. Brennan? I stopped walking. Who are you? My name is Detective Marcus Webb. Portland PD. He showed me a badge. I work in financial crimes. I was hoping we could talk. My heart stuttered, but I kept my face neutral. About what? Your late husband's business dealings. We've been investigating some irregularities in the operations of Portland Distribution Services. Your husband's name has come up. Arthur has been dead for over a year. I know. I'm sorry for your loss. He didn't sound sorry. But we have evidence that he was involved in illegal activities for quite some time. Smuggling, money laundering, tax evasion. That's ridiculous. Is it? He pulled out a photograph, showed it to me. Arthur and Thomas standing outside the warehouse, shaking hands with Kovac. The photo was grainy but unmistakable. This was taken 4 years ago. We've been building a case for a while now. I looked at the photograph, then at him. What do you want? Information. Cooperation. Your husband kept records, didn't he? That's what he was known for. Being meticulous. If he did, I don't know where they are. Mrs. Brennan, you're not under investigation. You're a victim here. Your husband lied to you. Used your home and business for illegal activities without your knowledge. We want to help you. By destroying what's left of his reputation? By making sure everyone knows my husband was a criminal? By getting justice? And by taking down the people who forced him into this life in the first place? He stepped closer, his voice lowering. Kovac is still operating. Still hurting people. Your husband's records could be the key to stopping him. I resumed walking. He followed. I don't have any records, Detective Webb. And even if I did, I wouldn't give them to you. Why not? Because my husband is dead. He can't be punished, can't defend himself, can't explain his choices. All you'd be doing is making sure his name is remembered as a criminal's. I stopped and looked at him. Is that really justice? Or is it just revenge? It's accountability. It's cruelty. To his memory, to his daughter, to me. I started walking again. Leave my family alone, detective. There's nothing here for you. I think there is. And I'm not going to stop investigating. Then investigate. But you won't find what you're looking for. I walked away from him, my heart pounding. Another threat. Another person who wanted to use Arthur's crimes for their own purposes. How many more would there be? I called Kovac from a payphone downtown. I'd learned to be cautious about phones. He answered immediately. Mrs. Brennan. This is unexpected. There's a detective asking questions. Webb. Portland PD. I know. He's been sniffing around for months. Don't worry. He doesn't have enough evidence for charges. Just suspicions. He has photographs. A pause. What kind of photographs? I described the one Webb had shown me. That's problematic, but not fatal. He still needs documentation, financial records, witness testimony. Another pause. He asked you about Arthur's records. Yes. What did you tell him? That I don't have them. Good. That needs to remain true, Mrs. Brennan. If those records surface, we're all exposed. You understand that? I understand. I took a breath. I also understand that as long as those records exist, I'm a target. For you, for the police, for anyone who thinks they can use them. What are you suggesting? I want them gone. Completely. No copies, no originals, nothing. You're willing to give up your leverage? I'm willing to give up my burden. I watched cars pass on the street, normal people living normal lives. I want out, Kovac. All the way out. It's not that simple. Make it simple. You're good at that. I hung up before he could respond. I went home and took the folder from its hiding place. 20 years of Arthur's careful documentation. Evidence that could destroy lives or save them, depending on who held it. I'd kept it as insurance, as power, as proof that I wasn't helpless. But Detective Webb was right about one thing. These records were a key. And as long as I held them, I'd never be free. Someone would always be looking, always wondering, always threatening. I built a fire in my fireplace, the first of the season. The flames caught quickly, eager and hungry. I fed Arthur's confession into the fire first. Watched the paper curl and blacken. His handwriting disappearing into ash. Then the ledgers page by page. Names and dates and amounts. All the proof of what he'd done and who'd helped him. It took an hour to burn everything. When I was done, I stirred the ashes until they were unrecognizable. Then I called Sarah. It's done, I said when she answered. Done. The records. They're gone. Burned. Silence. Then, Mom, are you sure? Those were your protection. They were my prison. Now they're gone and I'm free. What if Kovac? He'll never know. As far as he's concerned, they still exist, hidden somewhere safe. But only you and I know the truth. What about the detective? Let him investigate. Without evidence, he has nothing. Arthur's dead, the business is closed, and I'm just a widow who doesn't know anything. Sarah was quiet for a long time. You're braver than I am. I'm tired. There's a difference. Detective Webb came to my house 3 more times over the next 2 months. Each time I told him the same thing. I don't know anything. I don't have anything. Leave me alone. The 3rd time he brought a warrant to search my house. I let him in. Watched as officers went through my closets, my drawers, my cabinets. They found nothing but the ordinary detritus of an ordinary life. Old photographs, bills, books, the remnants of a marriage. Webb stood in my kitchen, frustrated and angry. I know you're hiding something. I'm not. I'm just an old woman who wants to be left in peace. Your husband was a criminal. My husband was a man who made mistakes, just like everyone else. I looked at him steadily. Are you going to arrest me, detective? No. Then please leave my house. He did. And he didn't come back. Winter came early that year, coating Portland in snow by Thanksgiving. I spent the holiday with Sarah and her new boyfriend, a kind man who taught high school and didn't ask questions about our family history. We ate turkey and pie and talked about safe things. After dinner, Sarah and I did the dishes while her boyfriend watched football in the living room. Are you happy, Mom? She asked quietly. I thought about the question. Was I happy? I'd lost my husband, learned he was a liar, been threatened by criminals, nearly lost my daughter. I'd destroyed evidence, made deals with dangerous people, and chosen survival over justice. But I was alive. Sarah was alive. We were together, safe, free. I'm at peace, I said finally. That's better than happiness. She hugged me, soap suds and all. On Christmas Eve, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No stamp, no return address. Just my name written in careful block letters. Inside was a cashier's check for $50,000 and a note. Merry Christmas. Your account is settled. JK, I stared at the check for a long time. $50,000, the amount Sarah had given Kovac, now returned. A peace offering. Or a reminder that he was always watching. I deposited the check the next day and used it to pay off my mortgage. My house finally mine, free and clear. Spring came. Then summer. Life continued its ordinary rhythm. I still don't sleep well at night. Still sit at my kitchen table in the early morning hours, drinking tea from my chipped blue mug. But now I think about different things. I think about Arthur, not with anger anymore, but with something like understanding. He'd been trapped by his choices, unable to see a way out, trying desperately to provide for the people he loved. He'd failed us in many ways, but he'd also given us everything he could. I think about the woman I was before that phone call, and the woman I am now. They're both me, both real. I haven't lost myself. I've just discovered parts one didn't know existed. I think about moral choices and compromises and the price of survival. About the distance between justice and revenge. About the things we do for love and the things we do for fear. And I think about power, how it feels to hold it, how dangerous it is to use it, how frightening it is to let it go. Thomas Reed died in August. Heart attack, sudden and massive. I went to the funeral because Sarah thought we should. The church was full of people who didn't know what he'd done, who remembered him as a good man, a loyal friend, a devoted father. Maybe he was all those things. Maybe we all are, in our way. At the reception afterward, his daughter approached me with red-rimmed eyes. Mrs. Brennan, thank you for coming. I know Dad would have appreciated it. I'm sorry for your loss. He talked about you near the end, said you were the strongest person he knew. She smiled weakly. He said your husband knew it too, even if he couldn't admit it. I didn't know what to say to that. 1 year to the day after Sarah's accident, we drove out to Route 26, to the spot where she'd been run off the road. The guardrail had been repaired, the skid marks long since washed away by rain. We stood there for a few minutes, not speaking. I was so scared, Sarah said finally. That night when I woke up in the hospital, I thought my life was over. That I'd never feel safe again. Do you feel safe now? Sometimes. When I'm with you. She looked at me. You saved me, Mom. You saved us both. I just did what needed to be done. That's what makes you strong. We got back in the car and drove home in comfortable silence. I still have nightmares sometimes. Dreams where Arthur is alive and trying to tell me something important, but I can't understand the words. Dreams where Kovac sits across from me at my kitchen table, smiling his cold smile. Dreams where Detective Webb finds the folder, even though I burned it months ago. I wake from these dreams at 2:47 a.m., the exact time the phone rang that changed everything. I make tea and sit at my table and wait for dawn. But I'm not afraid anymore. Not of criminals or police or the truth about my husband. Because I learned something that night, something Arthur never understood. The most dangerous person in any room is the one everyone underestimates. The widow. The secretary. The old woman who seems harmless. I look harmless. I act harmless. But I know what I'm capable of now. I know what I've done and what I'm willing to do to protect the people I love. And that knowledge sits inside me like a stone. Cold, heavy, permanent. Last week I saw Kovac at a restaurant downtown. He was with business associates, men in expensive suits discussing deals over steak and wine. He noticed me, gave a small nod of acknowledgement. I nodded back. We understand each other, he and I. We both know what it means to survive at any cost. We both carry secrets that could destroy us if revealed. We both made choices we can't undo. We're bound together by those choices, by Arthur's crimes and my compromises. Not friends, not enemies. Something else entirely. I finished my meal and left. He didn't follow. Didn't send his men after me. Didn't need to. The threat is always there, hovering at the edges of my life like a shadow. But so is the power. The knowledge that I hold his fate in my hands, even if those hands are empty now. It's enough. Sarah's talking about moving to Boston. Better job opportunities, she says. A fresh start. I told her to go. To build a life that isn't shadowed by Arthur's choices or my compromises. To be young and free and unburdened. What about you? She asked. I'll be fine. I've gotten good at being alone. That's what worries me. But she doesn't understand. Being alone isn't a punishment anymore. It's a choice. My choice. I have my house, my routines, my small life. I have secrets that will die with me. I have peace purchased at a price most people will never have to pay. It's not the life I expected. But it's mine. Tonight I'm sitting at my kitchen table again, my blue mug steaming beside me. It's 2:47 a.m. outside, snow is starting to fall, the first of the season. In another life, I might have been sleeping peacefully beside my husband, dreaming uncomplicated dreams. In another life, I might never have answered that phone call, never learned the truth, never discovered what I'm capable of. But this is the life I have. The life I fought for, lied for, compromised for. And I'm still here. 64 years old, alone in a quiet house, holding truths I'll never speak aloud. Watching snow fall in the darkness, waiting for dawn. I'm not happy. I'm not free. I'm not innocent. But I'm alive. And I'm dangerous. And sometimes in the deepest part of night I wonder if that's enough. Then I drink my tea and I wait for morning and I do it all again. Because that's what survivors do. We endure. The snow falls heavier now, covering everything in white, burying the past under layers of frozen water. But spring always comes eventually, melting everything away, revealing what's been hidden underneath. I'll be here when it does. Still sitting at this table. Still holding my secrets. Still surviving. Always.